I've been a consultant for quite a long time, and the people that I consult with, the therapists that are becoming certified or approved consultants, they often have the same problems. And so I guess over the years, my secretary and I, we kind of took a guess at how many EMDR sessions I've done over the years. I started using EMDR in 1997 while I was in graduate school. And once I started my private practice, it's basically all I was doing. So I probably administered about 10,000 EMDR sessions, perhaps more. So over those years, I'm sure I ran across these same problems that people come up with. And I, either consulted with other, consultants, or just figured out ways of trying to, think critically to resolve the problems. So one of the first ones is oftentimes the clinician always has to use often has to use a resource at the end of the session. And I haven't had to use resources at the end of my sessions for a long time. And I didn't really think about, I don't know why that is. I guess I got better at EMDR, so I'm more skilled. So I started to talk to the consultees, and I sort of noticed what they were doing that was wrong. Even when I do my advanced courses, I'm surprised that clinicians who have had a lot of experience, they have this idea that phase 5 starts when the SUDS has to be a 0 or a 1. That's not true. And if you look on page 68 of Francine Shapiro's book, the 3rd edition, she does not say that. It's not, this SUDS scale is not the most important thing. In fact, I don't know about you, but whenever I get a SUDS scale from a client, it's maybe the most unreliable piece of data that I have. I trust what I see and what I've observed and what I'm hearing as maybe being more accurate than their SUDS that they report to me. So she never said that a phase 5 starts when the SUDS has to be a 0 to 1. That's not true. And you can read on page 68 what she said, and maybe you have a better idea of what I'm talking about. So phase 5 starts when there's an adaptive shift in the processing. It can be subtle, or it can be sudden, but there's a shift from phase 4, which is mainly all negative material that's being processed. It's where the heavy lifting of the session is, and that's a major part of the session. Because once you have an adaptive shift, the session's almost over. And that's why it's really important to understand that you are now in phase 5 territory, no matter what the SUDS level is. If the affect is more relaxed, if the client's saying adaptive statements, once you hear that, you're kind of in phase 5. You can get a SUDS, maybe the SUDS is a 4, it went down a few points, that's fine. We would certainly love it to be a 0 or a 1, but it hardly matters. In fact, it doesn't matter. And then once that happens, you want to make sure that once you're in phase 5, that it's a good idea to maybe shorten the sets, especially there can be a tendency for phase 5 to be fragile. So, and I think, there's some clinicians slow down the sets, the speed at phase 5. And I think EMDR came out and said that's actually not the standard protocol. You keep the speed the same. And I've never altered my speed in my entire career. I always keep whatever the client likes the speed to be at the beginning, as long as it's moving along at a good clip, we keep it at that speed. But sometimes I'll shorten the sets if I think that the positive shift is fragile. And then I may only do 1 or 2 sets, install phase 5, negative image, positive thought, maybe another set, maybe 1 more, maybe 4 maximum here in phase 5, body scan, and I'm done. If they say the SUDS is 4 and all this positive stuff is going on, and I say, well, I'm not in phase 5, I'm really in phase 4, but you're in phase 5. And if you think that this is still phase 4 because the SUDS is high, it's not a 0 or a 1, then you're going to take the client back to the negative image, the negative target, and you're going to keep moving through trying to find negative material that may be there. It may come up. But the session was over. And now you're almost starting all over again. And when you do that, the session isn't going to end, and you're going to have to use a resource to end the session. They're not going to go into phase 5. And this is very detrimental to the client because they were done. They were in phase 5. They had just gotten to the promised land, and you say, no, the SUDS isn't low enough. Let's go back to phase 4. So this is really detrimental. So it's really important to understand that SUDS scale is a recommendation and not a gospel. It has to be a 0 or 1, or we're not in phase 5. That's an improper way to think. And Francine Shapiro did not say that. But somehow that's gotten out into the ecosystem. And also, like, if someone is in this mindful state of healing, remember, EMDR is a self-healing process at its core. It's client-centered. The client's guiding this thing. So if the client is saying adaptive things and you can see the affect is more relaxed, they're no longer crushing the tappers, their hands are everything's more relaxed, and they say 3, and they're feeling good, and you say, what's keeping it from a 0 or a 1? So when you ask that question, you just taken the client out of this mindful state of resolution, and now you're getting them into their frontal lobe, and now they have to think about things. So there's no reason to ask that question. It often is just detrimental. So it's sure we would love to have 0 to 1 SUDS, but it's completely unnecessary. Completely unnecessary. So you keep the phase 5 short, you do the body scan, nice closure, and you're finished. Secret number 1, a SUDS of a 0 to 1 is not the most salient determining factor when phase 5 begins.